So, are there any weird rules I need to know or something? Asked, trying to sound casual. You know, just in case. I could be pretty sharp about stuff like that. Asterisk. Only one rule, Stanley muttered, handing me a heavy-duty flashlight. That looked older than me. Don't die. Asterisk. I laughed awkwardly, but he didn't crack a smile. Then he pulled down the rusted security gate over the front entrance of the abandoned medical facility and locked it with a padlock the size of my fist. Asterisk. Hey, said, pausing as he turned to go. This isn't a rule, just a piece of advice. Stick to the upper levels. Ceilings are lower and the hallways are tighter. Gives you a bit of an advantage. Asterisk. What's that supposed to mean? Asked. But he was already limping down the front steps to the old company truck, its engine idling in the empty street. He waved without turning around. You'll be fine. I've got a good feeling about you. Asterisk. Truth be told, I didn't even want this job. Actually, I didn't want any job. Asterisk. My dad calls me lazy and says I have no direction. Not to my face. He just says it loud enough from the next room. Okay? Mom thinks I just haven't found my life energy source yet. She's big into crystals, dream journals, and all that stuff. Asterisk. My girlfriend, well, former girlfriend, I guess stopped replying to my texts 5 days ago. So, that's where I'm at. Asterisk. I used to work in a downtown office mailroom. No real ambition, no interest in promotions. While my coworkers were networking and pretending to love corporate life, I was the guy quietly dropping envelopes on desks and slipping away. Asterisk. Then the pandemic hit. I lost the job. My roommates hustled through Nita, started delivering food, and picked up the guitar. Sanjay adapted to remote work like a pro, even wearing slacks for Zoom calls. Me? I just drifted. Spent my days binging horror narrations on YouTube. Got really into that creepy rules genre, which is probably why I asked Stanley about them. Asterisk. Once in a while, I'd play a mobile game for 5 minutes, then go right back to zoning out. Pants were optional. My phone didn't tell me what day it was. I'd have no idea. I wasn't exactly depressed-y, just didn't feel much of anything. Asterisk. Sometimes I'd check my pulse, just to be sure I was still here. Asterisk. What finally lit a fire under me was the thought of moving back in with my parents. That would be rock bottom. My unemployment was about to run out, and the firm I used to work for sent a generic text saying the mailroom was being downsized. Asterisk. I didn't care, but my roommates did. When I missed rent, they cornered me. Asterisk. Find a job by next month or pack your stuff. That was the deal. They didn't laugh when I said my scratch-off tickets were going to pay off soon. Asterisk. So I opened Craigslist. That's where I found the listing for a night watch job at an old hospital. No experience required. Tie perfect. Asterisk. I figured I'd be sitting in a booth somewhere, maybe scrolling my phone all night. Easy paycheck. I called the number and was surprised when they told me to come in immediately. They even sent an Uber. Asterisk. The office was in a dingy little storefront. The sign on the glass was hand-painted in a faded script, flaking at the edges but still legible. At least it wasn't written in marker on cardboard. That felt like a good sign. Asterisk. Inside, middle-aged man with thinning hair and a limp introduced himself as Stanley. He led me to a small office and waved at a creaky chair. Asterisk. The interview was weird. He didn't ask about my resume, education, or any of the usual stuff. Instead, he asked personal questions. Asterisk. Are you close with your family? Asterisk. Not really. Asterisk. Got many friends. Asterisk. Not exactly. Asterisk. Dating anyone? Asterisk. You, complicated. Then he asked how tall I was. 5'5", I said. 130, give or take. Asterisk. He grinned and clapped his hands. Perfect. Asterisk. That was probably the weirdest part. Asterisk. One last thing, he said as I stood up. Are you a good runner? Asterisk runner? I blinked. I don't really know. Why? Asterisk. Oh, you know, running, he said, mock jogging with his arms like he was in a low-budget sports movie. You fast? Got any stamina? Asterisk. I shrugged. I ran cross-country in high school, like 5 years ago though. Asterisk. That'll do, he said, scribbling something on a sticky note and slapping it into my palm. Be at this address, no later than 10:45 tonight. Asterisk. Wait, don't we need to talk about pay, hours, benefits, you know, the usual? Asterisk. He grinned wide. Let's see how you feel after your first shift. If you're still interested come morning, we'll talk money. Asterisk. He walked me to the door with a spring in his limp and shook my hand like I'd just been drafted. I got a good feeling about you, kid. Asterisk. Now, I know what you're thinking. Some creepy, middle-aged guy getting overly excited about my height and running skills. Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing. Asterisk. But at 10:25 sharp, the Uber arrived and I climbed in. I almost bailed. I really did. The idea of hauling my stuff back into my parents' basement, that was enough to push me out the door. Asterisk. Besides, I figured that even if Stanley turned out to be a psycho, I could probably outrun him. Limp or not. Asterisk. 15 minutes later, we pulled up to the front of St. Augustine Memorial Hospital, a place I'd never heard of, in a part of the city I didn't usually visit. Asterisk. It sat a ways back from the road, tucked behind a semi-circular drive. The surrounding neighborhood was a patchwork of small walk-ups and shuttered shops. Stanley was already there, waiting in a company pickup by the front steps. Asterisk. The hospital itself was massive, 5 stories tall, poured concrete with faded yellow brick, trim around barred windows. It had 2 large wings flanking a central entrance. The whole place looked like one of those brutalist schools built in the 70s. The kind that shows up in grainy photos of your parents' youth. Every window was locked behind thick iron grills, and a brick perimeter wall topped with metal spikes surrounded the property. Asterisk. So what am I actually supposed to do here? I asked as he led me up the crumbling front steps. Asterisk. Just stay inside and keep watch until 7 a.m., he said. There's still running water in the main building. Bathrooms working if you need it, but there's no power. Asterisk. And if someone tries to break in or something, asterisk, then call the cops. But you won't be able to inside. No cell reception. In there, all that rebar and concrete turns the place into a bunker. But don't worry, he added, already unlocking the gate. Nobody ever tries to break in. He left before I could ask more. So yeah, lots of red flags. But instead of trusting my instincts, I was more bummed about not being able to stream YouTube all night. Asterisk. That's when I got the bright idea to lean into the whole creepy rules joke. I thought maybe I could get Stanley to crack a smile or drop some cryptic warning. He didn't bite. Asterisk. The first couple of hours went by without incident. I passed the time wandering the building, flashlight in hand, checking out dusty exam rooms and darkened offices. The layout was simple, a bland, square main wing with linoleum floors, dulled by grime and beige walls that could suck the life out of anyone. Asterisk. If my life could be translated into architecture, it would look exactly like this place, dull, quiet, and forgotten. Behind the main desk, a hallway stretched deeper into the building. Past a couple of dead elevators and the central stairwell, I found what was left of a cafeteria, kitchen, and some administrative rooms. Most of the furniture had been cleared out, but a few old file cabinets, broken chairs, and random clutter remained. Asterisk. The waiting room still had those weird metal cones, heavy, brushed aluminum things. When I looked closer, I saw they were filled with sand and old cigarette butts. That was wild. This place had to have shut down before I was born. I can't remember anyone being allowed to smoke in hospitals. Asterisk. Each wing had a long corridor lined with old office doors, probably for doctors and specialists. The doors were mostly open. Streetlights outside cast a faint orange glow through dusty windows, enough to light my way. But I kept the flashlight on anyway. Asterisk, it wasn't until later that I noticed something strange. There was no vandalism, no graffiti, no busted windows, no trash or broken glass, no needles or beer bottles or anything you'd expect in a forgotten building in this part of town. Asterisk, well, except for a few rooms. A couple of doors looked like they had been kicked in, and the walls inside had deep gouges, long, erratic slashes in the plaster. Another red flag I ignored. Asterisk. First time in ages, I actually felt something. The silence, the shadows, the faint thrill of exploration. It was like running a new cross-country course again. The world was quiet, but my brain wasn't numb. Asterisk, calling. It fun would be a stretch. But it was something. Then came the crash. Distant, hollow, muffled by thick walls and dead air, but sharp enough to cut through everything. It came from below. I remembered seeing a faded sign back at the stairwell. A downward arrow pointing toward laundry, storage, boiler, morgue. I hadn't gone down there. Even though I was enjoying my abandoned hospital adventure, I wasn't that brave. Not yet. Asterisk, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a shelf tipped over. Maybe some rats knocked something loose. Asterisk, then came another sound. Louder this time. A metallic scrape, then a bang. Definitely not rats. Asterisk, I was in the north wing, not far from where the hallway met the main building. Just around the corner was the stairwell and the basement. That's where the noise was coming from. Stanley, that you? I called out. My voice cracked from dryness and nerves. The beam from my flashlight wobbled. You hazing the new guy, huh? I joked weakly, and then I saw it. At the very edge of the hallway, something moved just beyond the reception desk. Long, crooked fingers, like spider legs, curled slowly around the wall's edge. And then a head followed. Asterisk, it was enormous, so tall it nearly scraped the ceiling. Its skin looked stretched, leathery, like something left out to rot. Sparse strands of dark, greasy hair hung from its scalp like dead vines. Asterisk, its eyes were sunken and distant, like dull coins at the bottom of a stagnant well. But they reflected the flashlight just enough to catch their shape. Then it grinned. The mouth opened wide. Too wide. Rows of jagged, uneven teeth glinted in the beam like shattered glass. Asterisk, oh, hell no, I choked out, already turning. Asterisk, I ran blind and breathless. No plan, no destination, just pure animal panic. All I wanted was to put as much space between me and that thing as humanly possible. Asterisk, and of course, it followed, 'cause that's what monsters do. They chase, then they catch, then they tear you apart in the most nightmarish way imaginable. Asterisk, behind me, I could hear its sharp, uneven clacks echoing against the linoleum floor. Talons, claws, something unnatural slapping the tile in erratic bursts, closing the gap with every step. I didn't dare turn around. Asterisk, at the hallway's end, I crashed through a door and found a stairwell. Right, only one way to go. Dash up. Asterisk, by the time I hit the first landing. Passing a faded sign marked surgical, the door below exploded open. The thing was right behind me. I didn't stop. I bolted onto the second floor, swerving past abandoned gurneys and wheelchairs that had been left to rust. My legs carried me toward the main building on pure fear and adrenaline. Asterisk, halfway down the corridor, I spotted an old nurse's station. I dove behind the counter and shut off my flashlight just in time. Asterisk, I heard the stairwell door slam open. Asterisk, its footfalls were slower now. It's deliberate. Each step, a deliberate scrape of claw on tile. Shadows from the outside streetlights slipped through the filthy windows, casting its distorted form across the walls behind me. Asterisk, it stopped. Right in front of the counter. Asterisk, only a thin panel of worn plywood separated us. I didn't breathe. Asterisk, long fingers bent, like the legs of an insect, curled over the chipped edge of the counter. The tips tapped lightly against the underside. I was inches away. Asterisk, my skin buzzed. My blood roared in my ears. I slapped a hand over my mouth, not sure if I was about to scream or laugh. The absurdity of it all felt like a punchline. Asterisk, before I could lose control. The thing gave a sharp exhale. Almost a snort, and slowly moved off. Asterisk, I waited. Asterisk, when its clawed feet had faded into the distance, I risked a glance. It had lumbered toward the central corridor, stooped and awkward. Asterisk, now that I could see more of it, the full horror sank in. Asterisk, it was humanoid, kind of emaciated, skeletal, at least 10 or 12 feet tall. Its limbs jutted at strange angles, like they'd grown too long for its frame. It had to crouch just to fit through the hallway. Asterisk, now I understood what Stanley meant about the upper floors giving me an edge. If that thing could stand upright and sprint, I'd be dead already. Asterisk, I carefully slipped out from behind the counter and crept in the opposite direction. Then, clunk, my flashlight bumped the wall. Asterisk, the sound was barely audible. But to that creature, it was enough. It stopped, spun, saw me, and screamed. I ran back toward the stairs. It was my only option. Asterisk, I tore up the steps, 2 at a time. Shoving through the next door, I found marked patient ward. The 3rd floor hallway lay ahead. I darted into the first open room I saw. Asterisk, inside were 2 metal bed frames and a tattered privacy curtain swaying gently in the dark. The windows were barred. Of course, asterisk, I could hear it coming up the stairs. Add seconds. Asterisk, I pressed my back to the wall and wrapped the dusty curtain around myself like a terrified kid hiding from the monster under the bed. My heart pounded in my throat. Then the door burst open. The creature snarled, furious that it didn't see me right away. It smashed one bed frame into twisted metal, then slashed my curtain with a swipe of its blade-like fingers, slicing it clean off the rod. I crumpled with the fabric as it hit the floor, as it destroyed the second bed in a frenzy. A piece of the frame snapped off and bounced across the room, hitting me square in the temple. My vision sparked, but I didn't move. Asterisk, I didn't make a sound. Asterisk, after a long moment of heavy breathing and frustration, it finally turned and stomped back into the hall. Asterisk, I lay still beneath the curtain, barely daring to breathe. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, to move, to do something, but I didn't. Not yet. Eventually, I peeled the curtain off and sat up. The hallway outside was dead quiet, but for all I knew, that thing was just around the corner, waiting. Asterisk, still, I couldn't stay here forever. Asterisk, maybe, just maybe, I could get to the roof. If I made it above the concrete and steel, maybe my phone would pick up a signal. Maybe I could call for help. Asterisk, the light from the street outside didn't reach this far. The 3rd floor was dim, quiet shadows and dusty shapes, but manageable. Asterisk, the stairwell was a different story. Total darkness. Asterisk, I hesitated, knowing the flashlight beam could give me away, but I needed to see. I braced myself, every nerve coiled, and clicked the light on. Nothing. Empty stairs. Asterisk, I crept upward past the 4th floor, then the 5th, at the top roof access, chained, padlocked. I pulled out my phone. Still nothing. No bars, no signal. Figures. I turned to head back down, and that's when I heard it. A faint scrape, claws on concrete. Below me, I shined my light down over the railing. 2 floors down. Those silver eyes were staring up at me. Asterisk. Then it let out a dry, ticking growl. A sound like laughter made of nails on glass. And then it charged. I bolted, nearly falling as I scrambled to the 5th floor. I barely made it to the hallway. My legs felt like jelly. Even without a sign, I knew what this floor used to be. The psych ward, asterisk rooms with padded walls. One even had what looked like an old shock therapy unit still mounted on the wall. Asterisk. It's weird the things your brain chooses to notice when you're about to die. Asterisk. I ran hard. Asterisk back into the central corridor as the creature closed in. I was heading for the main stairwell again, but a flash of clarity cut through my panic. Asterisk, that was a death trap. Wide open, nowhere to hide, would catch me in seconds. Asterisk, instead, I veered left into the first room I saw, with a sturdy-looking door slammed. It shut behind me. It was the only option I had. I sprinted in a blind panic, acting purely on instinct. I didn't have a destination, just a desperate urge to get as far away from that nightmare as humanly possible. It followed, naturally. That's what monsters do. They chase, then they kill. Always in ways no one should ever have to imagine. Asterisk, its claws, whatever kind of jagged limbs it used for feet hammered against the old linoleum behind me, the sharp clack-clack building with every step. I didn't dare look back. Of course, I slammed through a door at the end of the hallway and stumbled into the emergency stairwell. There was nowhere to go but up. Asterisk, as I hit the first landing labeled surgical unit, the creature burst through the door below me, shattering it with a guttural snarl. I darted into the 2nd floor corridor, weaving past old gurneys and empty wheelchairs as I rushed back toward the main wing of the building. Asterisk, midway down the hallway, I spotted a nurse's station. I dove under the counter and flicked off my flashlight just as the thing tore through the stairwell door behind me. Its footsteps slowed to tearing down. The methodical tap of claws on linoleum echoed down the corridor like a slow countdown. Asterisk, the faint glow of streetlights filtered through cracked windows, casting warped shadows across the cabinets and corkboards. One of those shadows stretched grotesquely as the creature crept closer. Asterisk, it stopped, stunned the other side of the counter. Asterisk, all that separated us was a flimsy wooden divider. I held my breath. One of its hands, spindly thing with spider-like digits, reached over the counter. The claw tips drummed lightly on the underside, just inches from my face. My skin buzzed with adrenaline. My heart thudded so loudly, I was sure it could hear it. I slapped my hand over my mouth, unsure if I was about to cry or laugh like a lunatic. Asterisk, then. After a pause that seemed eternal, it snorted and shuffled away. As the clacking footsteps faded, I peeked around the counter. It was near the junction, back to the main building now. Humanoid in shape, but barely, emaciated. Its bones jutted through skin, stretched tight like old leather, and tall, at least 10 or 12 feet, bent awkwardly to fit in the narrow hall. Asterisk, now. I understood Stanley's warning about staying on the upper floors. With these tight corridors and low ceilings, the thing couldn't move freely. If it had room to stretch out and run, I wouldn't have lasted a second. Asterisk, I started to creep out from my hiding spot, trying to head in the opposite direction, when my flashlight bumped the wall with a soft clunk. Asterisk, it was quiet, but it was enough. Asterisk, the creature shrieked and twisted toward me, charging on all fours like a deranged predator. I bolted for the stairwell, taking the steps 2 at a time, bursting onto the 3rd floor marked patient ward and diving into the first open room I saw. Asterisk, 2 bed frames, a torn vinyl curtain hanging between them, bars on both windows. Nowhere to run, nothing to block the door. I pressed myself into the corner behind the curtain, wrapping it around me like a terrified child hiding from the thing under the bed. Asterisk, the door crashed open. I stopped breathing. Asterisk, it snarled in frustration, ripping one bed in half and swiping through the curtain just inches above my head. The shredded fabric dropped, and I dropped with it. The monster smashed the second bed, raging. Asterisk, a bedpost end cap, flew off and struck me in the temple, hard enough to send stars dancing across my vision. But I stayed perfectly still. Eventually, the thing huffed and backed out into the hall. I didn't move. Not even when the pounding in my skull made my eyes water. I stayed there, cocooned in the dusty curtain, taking short, shallow breaths through clenched teeth. Asterisk, but I couldn't hide forever. I needed to get somewhere safer somewhere the creature didn't sleep. Asterisk, my body thrummed with nervous energy as I slipped from the room. The windows on this floor let in only a dim glow, but enough to walk without tripping. The stairwell, though, was pitch black. Asterisk, I hesitated. Sure, I'd see those cold, reflective eyes the second I turned on the flashlight. I clicked it on. Nothing. Just empty concrete, above and below. Asterisk, I crept upward, past the fourth, then fifth floors. At the top, the roof access door was chained and locked. My phone still showed no bars. I turned to go back down. Then I heard a soft scrape on concrete below me. I shined the light over the railing. 2 floors down, those dull silver eyes met mine. Asterisk, it grinned. A horrible, twitching grin. Then it scrambled up the stairs. Asterisk, I turned and ran, stumbling onto the 5th floor landing. No need for a sign. This was the mental ward. Padded rooms, shock therapy equipment still plugged in, and God knows what else. But none of that mattered. I was running for my life. Asterisk, it was gaining. I turned into the main wing and knew I couldn't risk the open stairwell again. Ducked into the first room with a solid-looking door and slammed it shut behind me. Asterisk, a janitor's closet. There was a deadbolt above the knob. I threw it fast. Asterisk, empty shelves, a rusted mop bucket, broken laundry cart. Useless. Asterisk, the first blow against the door rattled the walls. Its plaster crumbled from the ceiling. A second hit louder. I shoved everything I could in front of the door. A futile effort. Asterisk, I spun the flashlight beam in every direction, desperate. That's when I saw a sliding panel in the wall, barely 2 feet wide, a laundry chute. The third impact shattered the door. The monster burst in, smashing my barricade like twigs. I dove headfirst into the chute. Asterisk, I slid maybe 6 feet before Kai jerked to a stop. I was rising. It had Meat's arm jammed deep inside the chute, a claw latched around the heel of my sneaker. I braced myself against the smooth metal walls, fighting to slip free. Asterisk, my fingertips brushed the shoelace. I tugged. The knot came loose. My foot slipped out of the shoe, and I dropped. I tried to slow my fall, but I hit the bottom hard. Everything went dark. My heart thundered in my chest. There was no need to check for a pulse. I could feel the blood pounding through my veins like a drum roll before execution. Time was slipping away. I darted my eyes toward the freezer doorknob lock, and it opened outward. No way to barricade it. Asterisk, desperately, I yanked at the handles of a few body drawers. Nothing. Either they were rusted shut, or there was some catch I didn't understand. I spun around, flashlight beam jerking wildly across the room. No counters to duck behind, no curtains to hide under, no laundry chutes to dive into. I was out of options. Asterisk. Then something clicked in my brain. Not a decision, just instinct. I dove into the pile of mattress stuffing matted against the wall, burying myself deep into the fiberfill. The smell, chokingly foul. I clenched my jaw to keep from G-A-G-G-I-N-G. Asterisk. As soon as I flicked my flashlight off, I heard it. A low, guttural growl, followed by the sharp click-clack of claws on tile. It prowled the room, breathing like an engine that ran on rage. Then the shriek of metal-bodied drawers being torn open was searching for me. Asterisk, the sound went on for what felt like forever before it padded back into the autopsy room. I heard the crashing of steel and frustrated snarls as it rummaged about. Not much to toss around in there, and soon the footsteps returned to cold storage. Asterisk, it paced again. The tapping of claws started to sound almost ... rhythmic. Then, unbelievably, I heard it yawn, the stuffing around me shift and compressed under weight. It was crawling into its nest. Asterisk, I froze, paralyzed under the dense mattress filling as it settled down inches away. It let out a snort, shifted once, and began to snore. Asterisk, I thought, I'm the monster under the monster's bed. And the thought nearly made me laugh. I bit into my knuckles to stifle the insanity creeping up from my gut. Asterisk muscles tensed, my heart. A thunderstorm trapped in my ribs. I waited. Asterisk, slowly, inch by inch, I burrowed out from the mess. Still silent, still in darkness. The low buzzing of the creature's snore guided me away. I never really saw it, just glimpses while fleeing. Crawling on my hands and knees, I felt my way across the morgue floor. Fingertips brushing tile and gurney wheels. Asterisk, eventually. I slipped out of the freezer room, crossed the autopsy room, and made it to the hallway. Only when I softly shut the door behind me did I dare turn the flashlight on. The batteries were weak, but the dim glow was enough to find the main stairs. Asterisk up, I went, one shaking step at a time, until I reached the main lobby corridor. Morning light streamed through dusty windows. I ran past the reception desk across the lobby, and threw open the frosted front doors. That's when I saw him. Stanley Asterisk cardboard tray in one hand, coffee cups and a paper bag, with the other. He was lifting the security gate, barring the entrance. Asterisk, rough shift. He smirked. Where's your shoe? I swung my heavy flashlight at his head. He blocked it, effortlessly. Asterisk, I brought donuts, he said casually. Asterisk, I swung again. He caught the flashlight, twisted it out of my grip, and stuffed it into his back pocket. Asterisk, stop it, he said. You'll spill the coffee. Asterisk. I screamed at him a string of words, even I couldn't make sense of. The sound echoed in the emptiness behind me. I bolted past him, halfway down the steps, before daring to glance back. Asterisk, oh, don't worry. Stanley called. It's asleep now. Sometimes it won't move for days. But hey, you saw it on your first night, and you survived. That's something. I had a feeling about you. Asterisk, you knew about that thing. Asterisk, well, yeah, he said with a shrug. It's my job. I find people to keep it, entertained, double quotes. Asterisk, you mean fed. Asterisk, he limped down the stairs, handed me a coffee, and sat on the concrete. Motioned for me to join him. Asterisk, not sure why, but I did. Asterisk, there's cream and sugar. Only glazed donuts though. Asterisk, I glared as I poured sugar and cream into the cup with trembling fingers. I've never even liked coffee, but the first sip, it's disgusting. The second, heaven. I devoured the donut like it was the first food I'd ever tasted. Asterisk, Stanley sipped his cup and winced. We're not feeding it, not really, just keeping it busy. Yeah, sometimes people die, but that's not the goal. Someone has to be there, in case it wakes up. Give it something to chase. It gets bored. It looks for a way out. Asterisk, what if it does get out? Asterisk, he raised a brow. Ever hear of the Milner Street Massacre? Asterisk, something tickled the back of my mind. Middle school maybe? Some brutal incident. I thought it was drug cartel violence. Asterisk, Stanley shook his head. That's the cover story. Wasn't drugs. Wasn't machetes either. Asterisk, then why not kill it? Asterisk. Oh, people have tried. Guns, fire, holy water, crossbows. Last one was a guy named Dwayne. Brought a samurai sword. Said he was done being prey. We never found his body. Asterisk, I remembered the skull I'd seen in the autopsy room, but kept it to myself. Asterisk, we don't even know what it is, Stanley said, staring off. Some think demon, others a failed science experiment. Okay, I think it's a physical form of fear. Negative energy made flesh. What we do now, it's been around over 150 years. Didn't destroy its nest, I suggested. He held up a hand. Tried. It just relocates. Can people die before we find it again? So we keep it contained. That's the job. Asterisk then. Casually, $2,000 a week. Full benefits. 401k match. You'll work twice a week. Next shift's Thursday. Don't be late. Asterisk, I choked on donut crumbs. Are you crazy? No way, I'm going back. Asterisk Stanley rolled up his pant leg. Titanium prosthetic glinted in the light. Asterisk things went sideways one night, he said. Now I'm the supervisor. I do the paperwork. Occasionally, I send someone else into the dark. It sucks. But someone's gotta. We sat in silence. After a while, Stanley stood and stretched. Time for me to go. See you Thursday at 10:45. Asterisk, I'm never coming back. Asterisk, he grinned. Oh, you will. I could tell. You liked it. Get rush. First time you felt alive in years. Tell me I'm wrong. I wanted to, desperately, but I couldn't. Asterisk, it's Thursday. It's 10:15 p.m. I'm standing outside my building, waiting on my ride to St. Luke's. My stomach is tight, my palms sweaty, but I feel ... ready. Asterisk Stanley was right. I liked it. Asterisk, wish me luck.